Sweet surrender as I love, serve, and remember.
Putting feet to our faith. Okay, so faith. I like to look up whatever we're talking about, so I looked up faith. When I mean faith, I looked it up. I tend to just go on YouTube and I looked it up two ways. Putting feet to your faith just in general, and then putting feet to your faith TED Talks. What was interesting to me, both in the TED Talks and in general, it was all Christians giving sort of very Christian messages. So that got me to thinking, well, what does faith look like in Judaism? And I looked it up, that was very interesting, and Islam and Hinduism. And then I thought, oh, this could be a whole comparative religion talk. So I've decided to let that go. It was very interesting, but not for today. So we're just going to use a very generic idea of faith. Faith is believing in something that is invisible more than we believe in that which is visible. So we believe we have faith in the invisible more than we have in what is visible. And we can see why that takes a lot of faith, because it's easy to believe in something you can see, taste, touch, or smell. It's harder to believe and have that belief be strong in our everyday life, because we can't see it. So it's not coming at us in the way that everything else in our life is. So we're looking at faith. And so the first question always to ask ourselves is, what do you have faith in? So even if you have faith we know what we have faith in, that we can see, taste, touch, or smell. We trust that tomorrow is going to show up. But what do you have faith in the invisible? Just being conscious. And when we look at that faith, are we spending time connecting with it? So last week when we were talking about imagination, intention, and intensity, that's communion with this invisible presence. The only reason why you would do that is because you know that this invisible presence is more powerful than the visible presence. You're engaging in something in your imagination and intention based on spiritual principle and intensity on something we can't see yet. Prayer and meditation do the exact same thing. So these are all modalities to get us activated and connected with this presence that we can't see, taste, touch, hear, or smell. And it starts to make it more alive and we start to feel it, yeah? We've all had this experience. That's why you're here, because you feel that invisible presence in your life. I just met someone, in fact, it was so cool. I met someone at Starbucks today. She's a new shift manager, and she's not new, she just transferred. She's not new. And I was telling her, she said, oh, you have anything planned today? I said, I'm going to church. I'm a minister, and she didn't seem too interested in that. So I had to ask, I said, well, do you have any religious background? And she said, well, I'm partially Hindu, but I grew up, my parents used to take me to a mosque and to a temple and to a church. And what I practiced and learned was that there's an underlying essence to all religions. And I'm like, yes! And we had this, and she said, have you ever heard of Sai Baba? Yeah, I know people who went to Sai Baba. She goes, yeah, and I did that. But then I was just like, so she got really excited. What I've experienced with most people who come to our center or who are on this journey is you know spirit, you feel it, you want more of it, and we might not be quite sure what that looks like, but we feel it. So you're here because you have that spiritual connection. This is not an organization that really focuses so much on the religion, like a dogmatic, here's what you have to believe. What we focus in on is you connect with spirit. We believe spirit's in, through, and as all life, and you connect with that spirit within you, and you're going to be guided in a way that's completely unique to you in your spiritual life and spiritual journey. So that's what we're here. Yeah, that's what this whole faith is about, is following this presence that is unique to us. But here's the key to that. We have to follow. That's the putting the feet to our faith. We might feel it. We might have a sense about it. We might even spend some time in prayer and meditation, but if we don't then take the next steps out into the world, there's a disconnect. There's a disconnect between that realm of the invisible and this realm here. Because it's our actual participation and walking, putting feet on our faith, walking in those steps, that bring the faith alive in form. Yeah? So that's all this talk is about. That's the takeaway, is I want you to look this week. This time you have to do it. Last week you didn't do it. You got to do it this week. I did talk to one person who did it, and it was really exciting. But so put it into practice. But it doesn't mean put what I'm saying into practice, but put this into practice. Connect with Spirit, listen to it, and then follow through. Take steps and notice that you're doing it. Be conscious that you're doing it. That's the entire message. Then what I'm going to talk about now is just 4 different ways that it showed up in my life, the way faith has looked, because they're all kind of different. That follow through has been different, 4 different ways. And so you might resonate with one of them. So I want you to think of, so what I want to say is, because I know I'm saying what is obvious, but even for myself, even as I'm giving these 4 examples, as I was even thinking about it, I'm like, oh, I'm so glad I'm giving this talk, because I needed to hear this. We all need reminders. I'm like, oh, Spirit has been telling me this, and oh, I haven't been, I go, yeah, like I hear it, but I haven't actually done it. I haven't really followed through on it. So even though I'm telling something that I know and I've lived, I still forget. We all forget. So for the rest of this talk is not to tell you something you don't know, but to remind you and say, so just connect with yourself, because Spirit's talking to us all the time. As Jack was singing, do you hear what I hear? And it says, I caught it today. Do you listen to what I say? Like, Spirit can be talking, but if we're not listening, it's kind of irrelevant, right? So have you heard anything in Spirit recently, in the moment, that you're maybe not be acting on, that might not, you haven't put feet on your faith yet? And there's no judgment, because then I'd be judging myself, and I don't want to do that. It's just to remind ourselves. Gentle reminders. So I'm going to give 4 examples of what it can look like. So the first example is when I was trying to figure out what to do with ministry, graduated from ministerial school, and I'm visioning what is God's vision for my ministry, and came in with a lot of agenda. I pretended I didn't have agenda, but I did, because I was really clear I didn't want to be a pulpit minister. And so I was willing to hear anything but that. But finally, life made me surrender, because God loves me that much. And so I finally fully surrendered. I was in meditation for like 3 hours, and I came out, and I knew that I knew that I knew. It wasn't, and because I was in Spirit, 0 resistance. When we catch that idea from Spirit and we feel it into the depth of our soul, we know. I got up from that visioning, and I immediately started doing exactly what I needed to do. There was no gap in between knowing and acting. So I immediately said, oh, I have to candidate. So I got up. This is after like 3 hours of meditation. Get to the computer. I need to put a candidating package. What does that look like? I did all the tasks, and it was effortless. Everything flew. Because I knew it. I spent 3 hours listening, feeling, knowing that I know, and then acting. So that's one way our steps can look. Sometimes you just know something, and some of you and it can be just like a little intuitive thing, and you act on it right away. There's no gap. So that's really cool when that happens. Pat ourselves on our back when that happens. Then there's the gaps. So when it was early in the 2000s, and I in this communing with the divine presence, at one point during my journaling, my grandmother showed up from the other side of the veil. How I knew it was her, I don't know, but it was one of those things. I knew that I knew that I knew. And she sat at the table with me. I was at Starbucks, and I just started crying. And I just, what she was telling me is, you need to write your autobiography, and you need to give it to your family for your healing. And I go, okay, I heard it. Can you tell me what it's like on the other side? Like, I was taking and she had no interest. This is what you need to do. Tell me that you've heard me and that you're going to do it. That's all she wanted to know, and it wasn't until I stopped with all my agenda and say, yes, I hear you, and I'm going to do it. And then she left. That was it. 15 years later, I started. I heard her, and I didn't doubt that. But what I did doubt was that she was right. because and so I'm just looking at doubt. One of the things that I was hearing a lot when I was looking up faith on these video tips is there's some YouTubes where people saying, there's a part in the Christian teaching saying that you shouldn't have doubts, that doubts lessen your conviction, and the less you're convicted, unless you really believe, it's not going to happen. And so I want to say the opposite of that. I think actually doubts deepen our faith, deepen what we know, because now we're not afraid. We're not afraid of those doubts. We just look straight at them and say, what's going on here? In fact, I will say there was one video, YouTube, it was a TED Talk that really moved me deeply, but I forgot to look up his name before our talk this morning, but he gave this beautiful story, heart-wrenching story of his wife dying in a car accident, and how they had 3 children, and obviously the devastation of that news. And he said, and it was really hard for me because I'm a minister, and my whole life is talking about faith and trust God and everything is good. And he said, I just lost all my faith. I just doubted everything I'd ever believed. I argued with God, 2 minutes. If you just waited 2 minutes with that red light, my children would still have their mom and I still have my wife. You couldn't do that for, just anger and rage. And then he started meeting other people who had similar experiences, because sometimes when you're in that doubt, you have a faith, and yet at the same time you seek out other people because you don't want to just hear, oh, it's all good or it's all working for, that just, ugh. So he found people who were in that search with him of what was real. And as he went on that search, he said, what happened was my faith got deeper and richer and more complex and fuller. And I stand in it more strongly than I've ever stood in it before because of the doubt, because I went into, is this real? What do I really believe? Doubt strengthens our conviction. So following guidance, sometimes we can do it right away because we have no doubts, we have no resistance, we just do it. But then there's times where we do have resistance. So with my grandmother, my resistance was, I don't even know what my family needs to heal. We all get along when we're together. We have a good time. That's one. And 2, I can't think of anything feeling more self-absorbed and narcissistic than to write my autobiography and to say, here to my family, here, read my story, because I'm that important. So I say that because when we get guidance, we come up with really rational and good reasons not to follow it. To me, not writing my autobiography was saying, I really don't think A, I'm that important, and B, I don't think there's any real problems here. And I don't think anyone else in my family thought there were real problems. So I put it off for 15 years, and even then when I did it, I took my time. And oddly enough, just as I'm finishing it, my 3 older brothers and I end up going on a weekly call with my mom because she has dementia. And so suddenly for a year and a half, I'm with my brothers more than I've ever been we all together are together for more than we ever have been in our entire adult life, every single week. And I give them and I've just finished the autobiography. It all happens at the same time. And suddenly, it becomes clear what those healing issues are. Oh, there is stuff. It wasn't obvious. It was subtle, and we're still in that process of healing. And I'm so grateful because I couldn't see it. So it's an interesting thing. So I resisted for 15 years to even begin. I never doubted that I didn't doubt that I heard it. I didn't know if I necessarily believed it, but I did make an agreement to my grandmother that I would do it. So I knew whether I agreed with it or not, I said yes to her, so I was going to do it. And it was just weird how the timing worked out, isn't it? That just as I finished, I'm suddenly online with my brothers every week. And it's we have some wonderful discussions in our classes. I've been having wonderful discussions with my colleagues about free will, because I couldn't have planned that. I certainly didn't plan any of it. And so how did that all work out so miraculously? So when you say, do you believe in free will? My problem with that question is a yes or no answer. And I would say yes and no. I believe in free will, yes and no. Like there's complexity on all of these questions when we really dig deep. There's multiple ways of looking at it. So we can resist when we hear, but know that we're going to do it. We're going to follow through, but we're resisting. So looking at whatever guidance you've had, is there a part of you like, well, I know I'm going to do it. I'm just putting it off for right now. The third way is just, you do it, even if you do doubt, you do it anyway. So last week I was talking about how I journal, and for me, and it's the infinite love intelligence of the universe, and I choose, it's completely made up, I'm not in any way believing, but I choose to put the form of Jesus in front of me. And I was journaling one day to this presence of love and intelligence, and I had just started my new job. I'm at Celebration Center, I'm a new minister, and he's telling me, you need to do, for the first 40 days, you need to do a fast. Basically eat salad and fruit for lunch and dinner, oatmeal for breakfast. And that's it for 40 days. And that was not at all appealing to me. So and he said, and when you do this, at the end of many of you know the story, at the end of the 40 days, you're going to meet your divine beloved. And I said, yeah. This is just me imagining Jesus in front of me, the infinite love intelligence, and we're having this conversation. And I'm like, well, how am I going to know? And he said, because it's going to be me, and I'm going to show up on your doorstep with a bouquet of roses. So just to make a long story short, 40 days later, we're going bowling with our friend B and Jerry. Jack and I decide to go out for dinner beforehand. He gets out of his car at 6 o'clock, walks up to the doorstep with a bouquet of roses. Exactly what I was told. The entire time as I'm walking through those 40 days, I wasn't thinking, oh, this is definitely going to happen. I'm like, it may or may not happen. I wasn't like, when I heard from my grandmother, do this, or I got the vision from ministry, I knew that was from God. I'm participating, I'm imagining, I'm feeling, I'm communing with this presence. Is this actually true? I wasn't sure. I just wanted to find out. I was curious, but I didn't know the whole time. I just was willing to participate in the experiment. So sometimes you get guidance and you're like, it may or may not be true, this guidance, but what if I just do it anyway, whatever it is, to see if what is being told to me is going to lead to something. Because here's the interesting part, there's lots of things that we're getting intuitive hits about. Aren't you? Do you get intuitive hits about things? Are you sure that you get intuitive hits about it? Okay, just check. When we get intuitive hits, the question is, do we follow them? If spirit is infinite love intelligence, right? This is what our principle. And it is all the time, not just some of the time, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It is communicating with us all the time. And there are times where we're especially available to it, and we hear it. We hear that nudge. We hear that moment, that little thing. And the question is, do we follow it? Especially when it doesn't seem very important. So even as I was thinking about this week, I was thinking, I get those little nudges a lot and I don't follow through, especially because I'm a journaler. And but it's not even with journaling. If you're in communion with this presence is communicating with us, and I can either acknowledge it or not. And what I started to discover is when I'm writing, I can often go, oh yeah, I hear you, and then I just it'll be like a little thing. Make sure you go grocery shopping today. And then the day will get busy, I didn't get grocery shopping, and I'm like, it's okay, I'll do it tomorrow, it's not a big deal. And I'm like, all those little things where I get something, and I go, well, it's not that big a deal. I can't say, by the way, the end of that story, I didn't tell you, I actually never went back and read what this presence said to me about the 40 days. So I went, after Jack showed up on my doorstep with a bouquet of roses, I went back and read it, and it didn't say you're going to meet your divine beloved. It said you're going to meet the husband and the father of your child. Yeah, it was a wow. It was one of those wow moments. So if I'm going to believe that and follow through on that, because it was clear what it was, when am I deciding not to follow it? When am I deciding, that's an irrelevancy? There are so many things we don't know, right? Maybe it does matter that I went to the grocery shop. I don't know, but either I'm going to walk in faith and follow these various guidances that I get from little things like going grocery shopping to big, huge things like the person you're going to marry, your career, your relationships, your whatever's important, health. Are we going to listen to it and put feet on our faith? Do we actually believe that this presence is communicating with us? See, and I'm not saying we don't believe in blind faith. I'm not saying just believe. I'm saying test it. Keep working with it. Be in an actual relationship with this presence that is communicating to us and test it. Just as I was testing those 40 days. I didn't know, but I thought I'd check it out, right? Will I know if I went grocery shopping on one day and not the other day? Well, what's happened is because I've started paying attention, and when I say start, not just this past week, I'd say for the last couple of years, I've been paying attention when I don't follow even in the little things, and then the next day something happened, I'm like, oh, that's why I was told to do that yesterday. Now it makes sense. It starts to reveal itself. Like this intelligence turns out, I love the way one person said it, it turns out this intelligence is really, really smart. And so it being really smart and all, I should probably pay attention. It's way smarter than I am, than we are. And then the fourth one is when we actually feel the deep communion but have no idea what it's guiding us to do. So back 30 years ago, I did a month of silence. I didn't have any idea what I wanted to do next. I wasn't on this path. I had gone to New Thought churches, but I had no path ahead of me. I was a psychology major. I had done some of that. And I had no responsibilities. I was not in any serious relationship. I had no kids. So the world was wide open, and I had no idea what I wanted to do or what I was called to do. At this point, I was very clear I wanted to follow God's guidance. So I did it 30 days of silence. No people, told my family, don't call me, I didn't work, I didn't go to classes, I just isolated myself. And I was very strict, like I wouldn't let myself lie down all day. And I wouldn't, no TV, no radio, we didn't have computers, internet then. And it was hard. We don't realize how much all this stimulation, and I literally, about 2 weeks in, I still remember it. I can see, I went up to the wall and started banging my head. I wanted to feel something because there was nothing that was creating any stimulation, and that actually felt better than nothing. But after that, I went and sunk into a much deeper 2 weeks of the peace that truly passes all human understanding, and I loved it. But I didn't come out of it knowing what I wanted to do. I knew two things. Well, first of all, I just felt this peace that was grace, and it answered a question that I didn't even know I was asking, which is what I wasn't supposed to do. And I was told you're not supposed to be a monastic. I didn't even know really what a monastic was. I was just told I wasn't supposed to do it, and basically go off. And later on, that did become an inquiry, so that helped. But it said you need to learn this same peace that you've discovered here in the middle of life. That's your challenge for this lifetime, is to find this same peace in the middle of life. That's all I knew. Not really great career advice, but it was helpful. And I also knew I had made a demand. I didn't really make a demand. I was just very clear. I was rationally explaining to the divine. And remember, I'm very quiet. The book that carried me through was Joel Goldsmith's Thunder of Silence. I was very still, and I was very much in the oneness. I wasn't feeling any resistance. And so just this clarity, like, if I'm going to really serve the divine in my best way, I has to be full of joy, and I have to have abundance. I just don't want to be worrying about money. That's not something, that just takes away from the joy. So joy, it has to be joyful and abundant. So I come out of the 30 days. First thing I do is go to Agape and hear Reverend Michael. I'd heard him before and didn't like him, and then I heard him. Oh, amazing. But I'm just listening. I'm in this constant state of listening because I still have no idea. I know I'm feeling peaceful. I know I want to do something that's joyful and abundant, but zero idea. So it's just a listening. So sometimes we get these nudges, but we don't know what they are. So I just kept following, and I moved back to the East Coast. I went to my mom's house. No, I was talking to people, nothing. I was in zero fear because I was so blissed out. For those of you who know the way we pray here, we start with recognition, the oneness of all life, and our oneness with it. So basically, I had spent 30 days in those first two stages, recognition and unification. So I was completely at peace. I just didn't know what to do with it out in the world. So I'm listening. That wasn't it. I went to my dad's, who was in the DC area. And then I'm starting getting these hints from different places. My neighbor had just come back from a psychiatric hospital that was only 5 minutes away, and she was blitzed. She was like, that was the most incredible experience. She was there for 3 weeks. It was so healing. I think they need to hire some people. But on the news at the time in the DC area, they were doing all these layoffs from hospitals. So I mentioned to another neighbor that I was thinking of applying there, and they said, oh no, this is the worst time to apply for a hospital job. And in my head, I'm just going, cancel, 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 cancel. I'm here to follow God. I'm here to follow the divine presence. I'm here to follow these nudges. And so I just showed up, and they basically hired me on the spot. And the job was a job that I ended up loving, full of joy. Money was never an issue. And I was aligned. Everything was aligned, but it took time. So I didn't go with, so when we say sometimes put feet on your faith, sometimes you have faith, but you don't know where it's leading. Have you ever had that experience? Like you feel the presence, you feel something's alive, but you don't know where it's leading to you. And not sometimes, maybe that's happening now. And so one of the things that I did to keep myself anchored, because I had to keep I wasn't fully involved in New Thought churches. In fact, I think when I'm looking for these jobs, I wasn't going to any because I didn't know of any. And so you have to keep yourself inspired, right? You all have your jobs, keep yourself inspired. So the way I did it, because I'd only gone to Agape a little bit before this whole thing happened. And at the time at their services, they only sang 3 songs. They sang the same 3 songs every service, so those are the only 3 songs I knew. So I would just walk up and down my neighborhood. I still remember just singing these songs to keep me anchored, to help me listen in faith to where I was being guided. I just also want to say, because this is important because I have talked with so many people over the years who are waiting for that vision. Like, I'm just waiting to know what my purpose is. I'm waiting, just follow, just listen. You're being guided step by step in ways you can't even imagine. So I ended up working in a psychiatric hospital, which was I never, ever once considered working in a psychiatric hospital. So we're led in, we have to be willing to allow this presence to take us into places we've never been before. Faith will almost always lead us into the unfamiliar. Spirit is not interested in us just repeating the same patterns over and over and over. It constantly wants us to wake up to new territory. So we have to be able to follow and have the courage to follow. But how do we have the courage to follow into this new territory of which I knew nothing? I had no idea what I was doing. Oh my gosh, the very first training at the psychiatric hospital before I was even allowed to work was how to deal with assaultive and aggressive behavior. And the only way I got through that class was to keep telling myself, they're not talking to me. I'll take the training, but I know this is for other people, because I had to disassociate. There's no way I was going to do something like that. But I did, and it turned out to be effortless, but I wasn't ready for it. It's, everything into, just keep following, keep saying yes. So the way I kept myself anchored in all that not knowing, in faith believing but not knowing, were these 3 agape songs. And so a lot of you know these, well, I don't know. People these are songs that maybe some of you know from agape. So I would sing them. And so if you know the song, sing with me, please. And Jack, if you want to come up and join me, you're welcome to. Yeah, come on up. Well, okay, you ready? So as he's walking up. So the first song that every service at Agape began with was Use Me. You know Use Me? So for those of you, I don't even know what key to start in, but we'll just start singing. And if it goes out of my key, it doesn't matter. Because it doesn't matter about the song. It mattered. I didn't care. I was walking up and down the streets. I was singing with my whole heart. Being on key was not the least of my worries. Use me, oh God. stand for you. Here up. Oh, me, all I used to think God was the sun, God is the sun, but God's so much more than the earth or the sky or all of creation. God is creator, all in all, needing us to shine its light as me, as you. And just the chorus one more time.
So
use me, oh God, I stand for you. And here I'll abide as you show me all that I must do.
show
Me all that I must do. Show me all that I must do. What a song of faith, yes? Walking, use me. I don't know how, but use me. Today, use me. I walk my faith by asking every day, use me, show me. I'm listening and I will follow. And I'm saying I as the generic I, not just Harriet I, but we're all carrying that awareness and that willingness, use me. And then after every talk, followed by a treatment, the Agape community would sing, I release and I let go. I release and I let go. I let the Spirit run my life. Is open wide. Yes, I'm only here for God. No struggle, no more strife. With my faith I see the light. I am free in the Spirit. Yes, I'm only here for God. That's it. We don't need to release. Sorry. So the idea is when we're releasing, we're not holding on to the past. We're trusting Spirit with everything. So just that release, like use me, but at the same time, I'm releasing. I'm surrendered. If we're going to be carried by faith into our new greater yet to be, our new becoming, we have to let go and be trust. These are all songs about trusting Spirit with our whole heart, body, mind, and soul. So this is how we're putting feet on our faith, because it takes courage. Visioning takes courage because you have to it's going to take you into places that scare you. I was just listening to Jesse Itzler, and he said, if your plans for the future don't scare you, then you're not living. Because that's what's growing us. Faith is what's growing us, but faith also tells us that we're in Spirit, that we're always cared for, that we're always protected. And that's why I needed these songs to be willing to take these chances that I never, ever would have taken otherwise. So we're always safe. And you won't know this last one, Jack. So this last one, I don't think we've sung here ever in our church, but at the time when I was at Agape, it was sung every service, and I want to. It's so easy that I'm just going to sing. You'll catch on. So basically, it'll start with God, I. We're going to sing the whole thing. God, I, you, we, and then back to God. Okay. So God. Then you'll use the I pronoun, you pronoun, we pronoun, and God. It's a very simple song, but it anchored me in who I really was. In the world that we all are. It's so simple, okay? And I don't think, Jack, you and I have ever done this, or maybe it was a long time ago we did. Oh, I don't know what the key is. God is real. God is magnificent. God is light. God is love. I am real. I am magnificent. I am light, I am love. You are real, you are magnificent, you are We are real. We are magnificent. We are light. We are love. Back to God. God is real. God is magnificent. God is light. God is love. We remember who we really are. We walk in faith and we put feet to our faith. This is what life is all about. I was talking to someone who did a lot of meditation. And they did an Eastern type of meditation, and they spent hours. And they said it was great, but they didn't know how to integrate it into life. So there was like meditation and having all these spiritual experiences, and then there was life. It's our faith and walking our faith that brings the marriage of heaven and earth, where that separation is healed forever, and that's the life we are committed to. As we're walking this path, this beautiful pilgrimage of time in this sacred and holy time of year, we're opening to our hearts as never before. As we're getting ready for next year's theme, which is Mission Impossible, or Mission Possible. Mission Possible. We are listening in faith to this presence that is always talking to us. It's talking to you right now. It's guiding to you what you're going to eat for lunch today. Are you listening? What you have for breakfast, what you have for lunch, is always talking to us. It's going to tell you what to do about this issue that you've been having. It's going to guide you in ways that you may not even have a question about, but it's guiding you because it knows exactly where your greatest growth and your greatest good is. Our greatest good, our greatest joy, our greatest love, our greatest self-expression. It knows, and we follow. That is putting feet on our faith. So we're going to pray. And then as soon as we're done praying, Jack's going to just start playing away. So let's pray. Let's pray. We're setting our beautiful intention. Whatever your intention is, I just ask you to call forth that intention again. Because that is your voice. And what matters on this journey is your voice. That has to be the priority, is hearing yourself, that inner voice within you, speaking to you. That is the divine presence of you, that Christ, Buddha, Atman self, the eternal spirit within us that is unique to each of us, speaking to us gently in ways that only we can understand and hear. And we take time every day to listen, to commune, to feel it, and to trust it so much that we are willing to follow it, to put feet into this wonderful connection of spirit. And so we feel the intention that was made, and today, in this moment, we are committing to activate this intention. We allow Spirit to guide us exactly how to activate this intention. If one of your intentions was to feel more connected by the time you leave here today, perhaps putting feet on your faith is having a conversation with someone that you've never talked with, to feel a little bit more connected. We're opening our heart and our body and our mind and our soul to be these beautiful new Christ-light beings in ways that we've never been before, knowing that every step of the way we are constantly nurtured and cared for and protected, that we were never, ever outside of this infinite love intelligence of the universe, and the entire universe is conspiring for our highest good in every moment. And so we trust this conspiring. We have the courage to follow it, to walk in it, to step into this greater yet to be. Every one of us, for the power and the presence of pure spirit, the fulfillment of light and love beyond our wildest imagination is ever more increasing in our yes. It is always becoming more as we step forth in faith in who and what we really are. And so in deep abiding gratitude, knowing that this healing is happening for all of us here and now, whether it's physical health, emotional health, mental health, soulful health, whether it is finances, relationships, in the daily tasks of life, work, creative expression, and all the beautiful, magnificent, powerful ways that we get to express in this world. We just say thank you, thank you, thank you, God. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, God. And in deep abiding peace, And in total trust, we just say, and so it is.
I walk in God in all